Thank you very much. So, let's work out how to work the technology. So my name is Richard Young, as you already know. I work for a company called Bullhorn. We have recently launched the CRM system in the UK, hence we're sponsoring this event. If you want to get in contact with me, my mobile number's there, email address, and my Twitter handle's there as well. Very happy to take any questions, either now or in the future. Happy to give advice on CRM, which is not ours. It's all about interaction and knowledge sharing, as far as I'm concerned. Okay, because we're sponsoring, we get the corporate slide. This is it. This is the only pitch you get. This is Bullhorn CRM. We're a $100 million company. We're based out of Boston in the US. We've got a UK office, Australia office. We're a decent-sized organization. We spend over $1 million every month on research and design. So we're a fair-sized company. Okay, what I'm going to be talking about. So to begin with, at the top, at Richard_Young, so if you want to include me in your tweets at this point in time, that's my Twitter handle. #TechMap, don't forget that either. Utilizing content in sales and marketing alignment. Now, why I'm going to talk about this is because it's central to CRM and marketing automation. It's also one of the biggest failure points in most organizations. So, a lot of this is based around content. So let's talk about a little bit about the content we're going to drive here. So if we're looking at what marketing companies are measured on, and this is from the North American Content Marketing Institute, it's mostly about web traffic. And then we start going into higher conversion rates and lead generation, etc. Which is fairly interesting, considering the fact that 90% of salespeople don't use the content you generate, at least according to the statistics from the Content Marketing Institute. What are you using it for and what's most effective? LinkedIn, Twitter, etc. We all fairly much know this, particularly with LinkedIn's Pulse. It's a great form of getting interaction. I, as a salesperson, find that if I put something on Pulse, I will get interaction from buyers who will turn around to me and want to speak to me. So for me, it's a great social selling technique, but I need content. Effectiveness ratings for business-to-business tactics. Now, the interesting thing here is the top two actually involve people. And if we start going into this in more depth, you'll find that seriousness. Webinars and webcasts. So effectively what you're talking about is things like GoToMeeting, that sort of stuff. Again, this is from the same organization, Content Marketing Institute in the US. These two become interesting to me because it's human-to-human interaction. And we'll get further into that when we talk about sales and marketing alignment, or in fact the lack of. Qvidian, sales enablement company, turn around and say the top 3 things that salespeople use from your content: proposals, presentations, and RFPs. Not your case studies, not your blogs, not your white papers or anything else. They turn around and say it's those 3 things. Serious decisions, the people who turn around and say the 67% of the buyer journey is done before you even talk to a salesperson, reckon that it's only 65%. Content Marketing Institution in the US actually say it's higher, it's 90%. But the 90% is slightly older, but their data set's better. So, what does this mean? Well, if you can't turn around and prove that your content is actually being used properly, then you're going to be resource constrained. You're not going to get the budgets you need. In the US, they spend $20 billion a year on content. And in actual fact, they can't measure that properly, as has already been shown. So in actual fact, they reckon for an enterprise, it's actually twice that amount. And for startup organizations, it's over 10 times that amount. And the reason why they fail to turn around and measure it properly is because it's hard to quantify people's time internally. So the so what is you have to be able to relate this content back to usage by salespeople. If you're not, then you're not going to get the budgets you need to be able to do what you need to do. So talking of sales and marketing alignment, how the salespeople and the marketing are going to align to start using these things, here's a quick 2 statistics. The bottom one is the one I particularly like. A company called Math Marketing did a survey to all of Marketo's customer base, and they produced a survey which showed some astonishing results. In actual fact, at the end of this presentation, I'll show you the link to be able to go and get their report. It's all free of charge, so you can turn around, download it, and see the actual statistics for yourself. But 209%? That's massive. So if we're going to talk about sales and marketing misalignment, we have to start thinking about where the gaps are. This data comes from PayScale. So the first thing is your average marketing director versus your sales director is employed for far longer. The salaries are actually, as your base salary, are fairly similar, but a sales director tends to get more commission, which bumps it up. But then a marketing director tends to get a bonus as well. So it makes it interesting to see what's happening. For me, what this says is actually the sales directors always tend to be bonused upon or commissioned upon short-term goals. You're only as good as your last month or your last quarter if you're lucky. Marketing isn't measured in the same way, not quite the same way anyway. You certainly have to do it to some extent, but your pay doesn't go down as a direct comparison. So when you're experimenting with your marketing, for a sales guy, it affects their pay, their actual take-home pay every month. So you need to get on board with them rather than them with you to some extent, because it does affect them much harder. So let's talk about the marketing person. How do you see yourselves? Generally, a marketing person sees themselves as the center of a digital web, fully connected to all of their customers. They know their buyer personas and everything that's happening. But the reality is you're actually far too busy to turn around and be able to do all of this on time and on schedule. You know, there's so much going on, you're resource constrained. Salesperson, of course, is a used car salesperson by most standards, or at least that's what we like to think. The days of that have moved on. If you're not in transactional sales, so it's B2B complex sales, you need to be in the consultative or, more importantly, collaborative sales. And if you're not doing that, then you're not going to be a salesman guy for much longer. But they see themselves as suave and debonair, handsome, etc. They think the customers always say yes to them, but the reality is you're actually the same person. You don't have enough time to do everything you need to do. You've got to update the CRM system. You've got to turn around and close the business. You've got to generate your proposals, etc. There's just too much going on. So if you're both resource constrained, what's the problem? Well, the first thing is you don't speak the same language, and that's a major issue. Unless you understand what's coming through your sales pipeline, and everybody needs to be responsible for it, you're not going to be able to quantify and say, okay, this is the point where in our marketing process we hand over to sales, and where sales will accept it properly. If you hand it over too early, the salesperson is not going to deal with it. If you hand it over too late, it doesn't work either. So just turning around and putting some of these definitions behind it for your organization really helps. And that is just a conversation, so it shouldn't be that hard, but it seems sometimes it is. When we get to the pipeline, this is one of the key metrics that you need to be looking at, both from a sales perspective and a marketing perspective. Because at the end of the day, the companies are about revenue generation. It doesn't matter if you're a non-profit or a profit-making organization, you're still going to generate money. You need to look at the number of leads or opportunities coming in, the average deal value you're going to have, but times by the win rate, and you divide all that by how long it takes to close a piece of business. That gives you some real data behind what's actually happening. So if you can then put that back to your website and the number of interactions you're getting there, your KPI moves from being website hits into the number of leads, into the number of those which become marketing qualified, into the number that the salespeople can actually do something with. And that's a huge difference. Most marketing people actually aren't KPI'd, aren't bonused upon the fact that it's actually the number of leads which are good enough to actually close something with. Interestingly, most sales guys, if you ever speak to them, if they need something, it's always more leads. That's tosh. It's not right. If you turn around and increase the number of leads, it's not about leads, it's about quality leads. That's hard to achieve. So you need to look at what's dropping off and where it's dropping off. If you turn around and increase the average deal size and the win ratio, though, by using your content and your marketing automation, it means, for example, if I did 10% increase in leads, 10% increase in my deal value, my win rate, and I shorten my sales cycle by 10%, it's not 40%. It actually comes out, if you're looking at the maths, it's 48% for a 10% increase in just the different areas. So it shouldn't all be on marketing. So we looked at that and we talked about win rate. So why is this important? Well, this starts to get into the critical elements of how you're going to be measured. So when you start going from the marketing, so I've got a lead, and you put it into a sales cycle, whatever the stages happen to be, let's call it qualified, so it becomes a sales qualified lead. So it's an opportunity. The sales guy think there is a deal that can be done. If you find most of your leads are not being accepted by sales, that means you have a sales and marketing misalignment. And that's a huge problem. That's where that 209% increase comes from. So if you're KPI purely in getting website visits, anybody can get website visits. It has to be the right type of visitors. Now, in theory, we all know that, but do you measure the difference between actually the leads coming in and what converts? In actual fact, from a sales process perspective, you should look at this win rate at each of the different stages, because then you can work out best practice. So, for example, salespeople have this habit of not qualifying very well and rushing to a proposal. I'll give you a quote straight away. The issue with that is they can't do a value proposition properly if they go too fast. So what you would see there is a low win rate at the proposal stage because too much is dropping off. So then you can start to establish best practice. Well, we're talking about velocity. So this is sales velocity again. How long does it take to move from stage to stage to stage? So if it takes a long time to go from marketing to qualified, I would be turning around and asking your salespeople, why the hell are you taking so long? You know? They've actually proven if you turn around and speak to somebody in the first 5 minutes of getting that web lead. So for example, for you, Mark, when that HubSpot lead comes in, it should be hitting your BDR team and they should be calling within 5 minutes. If they're not, your percentage chance for actually losing the deal or getting into it is massively lower. So for example, at Bullhorn as an organisation itself, we are KPI'd at answering everybody within 5 minutes. And as you can imagine, that guy where he's got too much to do and not enough time, that's us, because we're reacting very quickly. But if you look at the velocity across the different stages, again, you can work out what's going on with your sales team. And as marketeers, this gives you an opportunity, because you can turn around and actually help to increase this velocity, or decrease it so it takes less time, with good marketing automation. So you can interrupt and you can help the salespeople along the line. Because the reality is that salespeople will drop off from chasing somebody if they don't think they're going to close either this month or this quarter, because that's not the way they're paid. It's not the way they're trained. So if we look at it, if I'm going across my buyer's cycle, across the top, we all know this about awareness, consideration, conviction, etc. These are the sort of things you can start doing as you go across. So it's a little bit hard to see, the writing is a bit small, but you should be mapping your buying cycle to your sales cycle and what you can do as a marketing organisation in the meantime. So for example, if I start off at the beginning, it's all about awareness generation. So it's about turning around and making people, through things like blogs, etc., aware that they have a problem and you can solve it. Later on, if you move up to case studies, let's say at the proposal stage or the value proposition stage, then it's about things like case studies. But what most people do, and in actual fact, one of the reasons why salespeople tend not to use the literature is the case studies are just one case study on one customer. They're not in context for what the salesperson needs. And the context for a salesperson is going to be, I'm speaking with the CFO. My case study needs to talk about finance to the CFO. And it doesn't matter what I'm doing because he's a money man. That's what he cares about. If I'm talking to the CIO, then it's going to be for ourselves, ease of use, cost of overall ownership, not just the initial deployment, etc. So you need from one case study several variants, and most organizations don't do that. Then the salesperson can use it because you can say, I'm talking to the CFO, this is appropriate for you. And it's the same with video testimonials, reference sites, etc. And you can actually proactively do some of this as well. So if you turn around and have what we describe as a sales playbook, which is simply a list of the different questions people want and answers to them, so you can have specific case studies. So for example, we've got case studies where we've won the business from Salesforce or Microsoft Dynamics, etc. We would have those case studies and I would turn around and present those as part of my sales cycle. If you turn around and make the case study just about us, then that's not necessarily what my buyer wants to hear. And that's half the problem. The marketing material that tends to go out that sales are looking at isn't about the buyer and the issues they want to solve. It tends to be more about your perspective as an organisation. And we tell sales all the time, you've got to listen to the customer, you've got to work out what their issues are, and then you can solve them. It's the same on our marketing side. And we don't do enough of it on both sides, on sales and marketing. Now, I'll walk through an example here with you of how you can turn around and do this. So we use Marketo internally, and that goes through to our CRM system. So I'll describe our process. So it hits over here, we've got our blog site, etc. It's on the marketing. I'm tweeting about things, I'm doing my LinkedIn pulse and all the good stuff I'm supposed to be doing. And they turn around and download a white paper. Now, our Marketo system turns around and does a lead scoring generation. At one point where the lead score gets to a certain amount, it tips into our CRM system. Now, lead scores, in actual fact, you've got to be slightly careful of. We're told by marketing automation that they're fantastic, but it does depend on how you set them up. So, for example, I go through Marketo and HubSpot's website on a regular basis. So I would have a fantastic lead score, but I'm never going to buy from them. It's just their information is good. So you have to look at more than the fact I just downloaded a white paper. It's repeat visits and what they're doing in between times. So the lead comes in and it hits down here through one of these items and it goes off to what we describe as our BDR team. Our BDR are sat within CRM, yes, but it goes as a lead within the system. At this point in time, it's not a sales opportunity. They do some pre-qualification. It's fairly simple qualification, and we consider that a marketing qualified lead. They then throw it over the fence into sales, so I'll get notified that they've given it to me. I then turn around and call them and do what we describe as a discovery call, which is to work out if it's a real opportunity or not. At that point in time, if I'm happy with it, I will put it onto my sales forecast. It will go as an opportunity into the system, and I'll work that as a salesperson. If it's not good, I kick it back to BDR and say, this isn't good at this point in time. And what needs to happen then is marketing take over ownership again. Now, in actual fact, I hate the word ownership because there isn't really one owner. All of us should be working together. That's half the issue. But it should go back into the marketing, irrigation marketing track or drip campaigns, whatever you want to describe it as, because it's not ready yet. As I move through, I may get to a certain stage and I lose the deal. So I turn around and lose to a competitor. They sell annual contracts. You know what that means? In a year's time, that data, that customer is up for grabs. I've paid a lot effectively to get each of these different leads into my system. To throw away that data is criminal. Yet hardly any organization I know of recycles leads. The salespeople need to turn around and say, it's not ready yet, and they need to throw it back over the fence to marketing somehow. Marketing needs to pick it up, and again, use campaigns to re-engage with the people over time. Different track. And once we do that, then it works. Salespeople only close roughly 1 in 3 deals. So if you've paid for that 2/3 of the deals coming through, then you sure as hell don't want to waste the money on that. You want to turn around and recycle it. So customers matter as well. So what we need to do with this sort of thing is we need to make sure that marketing is also engaging throughout the customer life cycle, which doesn't include just sales. It's also post-sales. So your CRM system should be able to turn around to you and promote different things to you. So for example, if you're dealing with larger organizations, who within their company is the top engager? Who talks to you the most? So that you can turn around, push that back into your marketing automation system and know who's going to be a VIP customer. So for example, at Bullhorn, we've got a recruitment event coming up on October 21st called Bullhorn Live. We know who our VIP customers are who are going to those events by spend and by interaction. If I need a reference site, guess who it's going to be? First people I'm going to ask are the top engagers. Larger companies, you also need to know who within your organization talks to them the most. And quite often, it's not going to be the account manager. You know why? Because they tend to speak to a set number of people. So knowing who speaks to them the most is actually critical as well. So you need to be able to do this. Your CRM system should be able to produce it for you. It's not rocket science to do that anymore. And you should be able to see activity over time as well. Most of the CRM systems can do it. You need to look at it. The reason why you're going to do this is really quite simple. Again, from account management point of view, if you see a dip in activity, it means they're stopping talking to you. What happens when people stop talking to you? They churn. They go elsewhere. So it's particularly in the marketing industry, if you find your sponsor at the organization moves on, you're almost guaranteed within a 3-month period that you're going to be up for a review of whether they want to keep you or not. Having activity levels like this to make sure you can see if they've stopped talking to you allows you to proactively give them a little bit of TLC and find out what's going on. So, marketing automation meets CRM. It's actually not that hard. It's actually relatively easy to connect your CRM with your marketing automation tool. There are dozens of tools out there. I can set up HubSpot to CRM in less than 30 minutes. I can do the same with Marketo. It's that easy these days. The hard bit is that part, working out your business logic. But you've got to do it at some point. If you do it, you will be far more effective as an organization. In fact, as math marketing say, up to 209% more effective. So don't be scared of the technology. It's actually very easy to do. It's not complex. All you've got to do is work out what your business process is first, and the technology will follow. And if you'd like to discuss that, I'm happy to discuss that afterwards. It's a lot easier than you think. So, top tips for sales and marketing alignment. First is, of course, agree a common language so you understand what you mean by what's a lead. Well, it means different things to different people. KPIs, you need to look at how you're being measured, because actually measurement and how you're bonused drives behavior. Ask any sales guy, because that's what they do with commission. That's what we get all the time. Build a buyer persona. Now, I have to cut these slides down because I've last presented this to the Chartered Institute of Marketing. It's slightly longer. You do need buyer personas. Your CRM system is one of the key data items to building a buyer persona, because you will see number of interactions required, who's in the process, not just from what's happening within Marketo or your marketing automation system. You need both. Because actually what people ask for when they come to your website is quite often very different to what they end up asking a salesperson. And a salesperson may need to reposition them as well, so in which case you need to work out what's going on. When deals fall out of the sales process, recycle them. It's such a simple thing to do, but so few people do it. Recommended reading: 5 Reasons Why CRM Fails. There's a quick link there for you, and how to solve it. And the Math Marketing Guide to the report on sales and marketing alignment is there as well. Take a look. I think that's good.